Well, hello. Now we're getting into the interesting stuff, research. And most of us use the internet to do our research in this day and age. So here we are. We're going to talk a little bit about the dangers of internet research, and I'm going to give you a way to ensure that the web pages you cite are reliable. It's called the CRAP test. We're going to start with uh, a little bit of a demonstration of ways people manipulate us to try to get us to think that they are experts when they are not. So in this video here, so that silly video there is, I can never pronounce the guy's name, but you may know him as the Ancient Aliens guy. And it's really kind of humorous to think. I mean, it's a fun show, but this gentleman, per se, presents himself as an expert in his field. And you always see underneath his name on the website that he's the publisher of Legendary Magazine, and he does this and he does that, and blah, blah, blah. But you cannot believe everything you see, you hear, or you read on the internet, and a lot of people have a tendency of doing so. This video is a great example. He's masquerading as an expert in these fields, and the Ancient Alien show, what it looks at is things like history, philosophy, scripture, mythology, all these fields that people uh, study constantly, and there are experts in that field. But he is not, and you'll see more about that in a moment. In fact, we're going to look at some facts about this gentleman to show that he's not really an expert in any of those fields. So, when we are watching this clip, again, he gives us the illusion that he is an expert, but this is his actual background. And again, I can't pronounce the gentleman's name, but he has a BA in Sports Information and Communication from Ithaca College. He graduated in 1998. Now, that's not to say he is an unintelligent person. You have to be quite intelligent to get a degree in that field, a Bachelor's of Arts, but that does not make him an expert in history, philosophy, science, mythology, scripture, religion, theology, all these things that he is trying to claim expertise in. The next big thing on his bio that you find is that he was a bodybuilding contest promoter. That's his primary area of success, including the Mr. Olympia events. Again, something that has no connection whatsoever to this television show or the claims it is making. And then the next thing is that he's the editor of Legendary Times, which ran for about 9 years. So it wasn't even a publication that ran that long. And it looks at ancient astronaut research, which is this weird pseudoscience field. It's entertaining, it's fun, but is it actually reliable? So when you're looking at him as an expert in anything he writes or anything he says or anything he publishes, and he does have articles online, he's not really a reliable source for any conclusions about any of those fields. But a lot of people listen to him, and a lot of people think that he knows what he's talking about. And maybe he's read a lot on these things. I know he's traveled a lot. We see that in the television show. We know that he can speak many languages, many more than me, and probably many more than you. But does that make him somebody that is a reliable source? And in most instances, I would say no. I would say that he is not a reliable source. In fact, he is a person who is profiteering off of this theory to make a name for himself, to gain fame, and through that, he is duping uh, many, many, many people. Uh, So he's making a profit off of other people's, for lack of a nicer way of saying it, stupidity. And a lot of people do that on the internet. So let's go over some of the dangers of internet research. Anyone can build a website. You can build a website. I can build a website. Anyone can build a website. Anyone can claim expertise. Dr. Dre, the hip hop artist, isn't a doctor. He doesn't have a medical degree or a PhD or even an EDD. He's not a doctor. He has a lot of experience. He's a great producer. He's a great rapper, but he's not a doctor. So I want to go to him for any reliable information about a medical diagnosis. Any organization can fund and publish research that supports what they want you to hear or believe. There's tons of historical examples of this even before the internet. In fact, back in the 60s and 70s, even as late as the 1990s, there were medical doctors who were paid or hired by tobacco companies to skew research or present research that showed tobacco and nicotine addiction in a positive light. This is all over the place. The sugar industry, how much research has the sugar industry paid for that has been skewed to show that sugar was helpful? In fact, the whole low fat diet craze of the 80s and early 90s was directly related to that. So you have to be very careful. Even when things are presented as reliable, they could possibly be misleading. It isn't very difficult to mislead people into thinking the source is reliable. There's lots of ways to present sources and web pages to make them look more reliable, to make them look more believable. We're going to look at that in these lessons. The old guidelines of .gov, .edu, and .org, you may have been told that in grade school, websites being reliable are no longer true, as is obvious by a current political climate. And I hate to bring this up, I'd like to stay out of politics as much as possible, but we have to be aware that whenever the party changes in government, the information that they present as useful, reliable, meaningful, well-researched information online changes to fit the platform and beliefs of their constituents, their voters. We are seeing that currently, and we saw that in the last administration. It happens all the time. So you cannot always rely on those websites anymore. They're still better than a lot of the other websites, but they're not 100% reliable. And I've got to say this again, this may upset some of you, but the news is not the news. It's not reliable at all anymore. And all you have to do is watch coverage over current events from Fox News and MSNBC and see exactly what each channel is talking about. They both cater to very specific audiences and to the biases of those audiences. They also cater to their advertisers because that is how they make a profit. And typically, anytime a profit is tied to something, the information is not going to be as reliable. So this website is a good illustration of what I'm talking about, the Flat Earth Society. Go check it out, do a search for it. It looks reliable, right? It has a library, it has sources, it has research. It's not busy with advertisements. It appears legit. It's a .org. But is it really reliable? Well, that brings us to the CRAP test, which stands for Currency, Reliability, Authority, Purpose, Point of View. So I want you to look at the next lesson, the next part of this lesson, and apply some of that to the Flat Earth Society in between, and think about what makes that site reliable or not reliable. There's going to be another exercise in that video, in that lesson too, that I want you to do that's tied to an email. More on that later. So go to part 2.